Good evening, everyone. I would like to call the meeting of the Curriculum and Policy Committee of the Portland Board of Public Education to order on the 15th of April at 5:05. We've got an exciting agenda tonight because we're looking at where we are and where we want to be in secondary schools from two different perspectives. I'm Julianne Opperman, chair of the committee and District 3 representative, and joined by vice chair of the board, Mickey Abondo, and member Ali, Sarah Warren, executive director of strategy, who was liaison to the committee, and Dr. Ahmed, and Courtney Graffius, who is, what's your title, Courtney?
I am the acting IT director.
Okay, acting IT director, and Dr. Scallon is also with us. So I would like to open for public comment. If there is any public comment, would you please raise your hand in Zoom? We have some attendees, and we have some people. Oh, lots of comments. This is good. Excellent. So before we start public comment, I'm going to read the rules and regs about public comment, because it's not required at the committee level, but if you would like to speak, you put your hand up on Zoom, and you can put it up at any time during that part. As a reminder, these are the rules. Members of the public may speak on any subject directly related to the operations of the school, except for personnel matters or complaints concerning specific employees or students. Those shall be addressed through established policies and procedures. If an item is on the agenda for a vote, please use the public comment time associated with that item. That's generally the case with the full board, but we can comment on everything before this one, and maybe if we do go to a vote, additional comments. Comments are limited to maximum 3 minutes or 6 minutes for individuals using an interpreter to make their comment. Individuals may not relinquish a portion of their allotted time to another speaker. The committee members may not respond to comments immediately. Speakers must refrain from engaging in disruptive conduct, including but not limited to using vulgar and or obscene language, threatening others using words or by other actions, using pejorative or discriminatory language with reference to a person or a group on the basis of their religion, ethnicity, nationality, race, color, descent, gender, or other identity factor, making defamatory comments or exceeding the allotted time limits, talking over others, interrupting, offering repetitive comments, and offering comments on matters unrelated to the school district programs, policies, or operations are all verboten. I will stop any public comment that is contrary to these rules. So I see we have a long list and all. When you are entered, please raise your hand, and then we introduce yourself, and I will keep time. You have those 3 minutes, and I will let you know when you have 30 seconds left. So that would be appreciated. So Emily, maybe start with you.
Can you hear me?
I can.
Okay, great. Yeah, I'll keep it short and sweet. I just want to say I'm very much in support of the proposal for the phone-free, or I guess electronic device-free schools across the school board or across the district. So yeah, very much in support and would like to see that approved.
Okay, short and sweet. Thank you very much. Matthew, just saw you a minute ago, but please speak up.
Hello. I'm here not just with myself, but with 3 other people who would like to make public comment.
Okay.
My name is Matthew Hosmer. I'm a teacher in Portland Public Schools and a resident of Portland. I'm here to just voice my support for a beginning of the school day to end of the school day restrictive phone policy, keeping phones out of the hands of students from the beginning of the school day to the end. Looking at the draft policy that was revised for April 15th, I think that this policy is good, and just want to make sure that we are, as far as exceptions go, we're making sure that it is only for students who truly need an exception. I see that there's language in there for IEPs and 504s, but also just recognizing our multilingual community within the rules should be is important too.
Thank you, Matthew. Who's next? Matthew, in your group?
Yeah.
I'm on Matt's computer. My name is Lucy Bergen. I'm a parent of a soon-to-be high schooler and an elementary schooler. I wanted to encourage the board to please make new policy, as Matt was saying, bell-to-bell phone-free schools across the board in all schools. New policy for the 25-26 school year. And I assume that would mean getting it to vote this spring. So thank you. I know you guys have been working hard on this and talking about it. Just wanted to push you in that direction. Also, just a concern, talking to lots of teachers and admins, I want to just voice my opinion that we want to try and get the bulk of the job out of admin and teachers' hands in terms of collecting phones, if that becomes an option. So I just wanted to express my support for something like a Yonder pouch or some sort of technology in that realm.
Thank you. Is that it for you? Okay.
Got a couple more.
Okay.
I'm Sarah Schmidt. I'm also on Matt's computer. I'm a teacher at Deering. I am in full support of the new draft of the policy, the more restrictive draft. I think it's excellent. I love the fact that it's bell to bell. I'm a little concerned, as Lucy expressed, I'm a little concerned about having a lot of room for students to appeal and to bring their concerns about having their phones taken away or restricted and being able to somehow go back to administration to somehow get their phones back or have their consequences changed or reduced. I think that puts too much, it uses too many resources and puts the burden back on admin, and we're trying to avoid as much as possible having enforcement and consequences falling back on admin and teachers. So I agree with Lucy that maybe Yonder pouches is the way to go because it's so crystal clear. Thanks for your time, and we really appreciate the work you're putting into this.
Thank you, Sarah. Anyone else in the chat group?
Yeah, I'm just the last one in this on Matt's screen. I'm Christine Boudreau. I'm also a teacher at Deering High School, and just want to express my support of all the comments from the screen so far, and just reinforce in my daily experience just my concern around whatever it is that we are implementing, that we have the resources to implement it with fidelity. And I think the more clear and straightforward the rules are that we create to support this policy, and if it's at the policy level, can be that clear as well. I just really need it to be simple so that we can actually do it.
Yay. That's all for your group, Matt?
Yes, that is all. Thank you so much for the time.
You're welcome. All right. Lisa Shepherd, would you like to say something?
Yes.
Oh, good. There you are. Good.
Hello.
Hello.
I echo the room that just spoke. I urge the board to bring a vote this spring on implementing phone-free schools. From what I understand and what has been express that there is momentum and readiness to act now. So I do support that bell-to-bell phone-free policy. The updated policy is much more in line with what I know a lot of community members and teachers and parents are looking for and hoping for, where we want students to be fully present in the classroom without phone distractions. And if Yonder pouches are the best method to achieve this, I support that as a parent of a student in the Portland Public Schools system. And if concerns are raised, as we've heard here, about logistics, how to collect, store, and return phones to students, I believe these are solvable and not a reason to delay this policy change. The benefits to student focus, learning, and social emotional health are way too important to wait. So I'm hoping we can move this forward and get to a vote this spring. Thank you.
Thank you, Lisa. iPhone 15 plus, whoever you are, please join us and give your name and address.
Hi, Julianne and the committee. This is Sheila Jepson, the principal at Portland High School.
Oh, hi, Sheila.
Sorry, I am on my iPhone, so didn't know that was identified. So thanks. So I'm on the work group committee, the cell phone work group committee, and we've had 2 meetings in the past 3 weeks, and I will say that I don't know where I stand on this policy. I agree with those who have said it needs to be clear and straightforward. It needs to be simple. I worry what this will take away from my day, my assistant principal's day, my teacher's day. I worry about student voice and what are students saying, and I just worry about the pace at which we're doing this. And we've had pretty good luck in our school with using the cell phone hotels, and we could be better about teachers being consistent. And I think it is about teacher consistency that we need to be talking about that. So I encourage the committee to think about that. I agree that we need to partner with our families in this work and wonder, if there's a ban, might we consider them not coming to school at all? That's a question. And I know that there are lots of voices and lots of opinions about this, so I appreciate the opportunity to weigh in. Thank you.
Thank you for coming. Appreciate it. All right, Mallory?
Hello.
Hi.
This is Mallory Haar. I'm a teacher at Casco Bay High School. I've worked in the Portland district for about 15 years. So have seen firsthand sort of rise of the smartphone era with for my students. And, I too share grave concerns and have seen exactly what the research says about deteriorating mental health, behavior issues, and also just an increase in isolation that I think feels so much more prevalent in this post-pandemic era in particular, but also very much linked to kids' dependency on their phones. And I will say that I want to name that I think, so I enthusiastically support the changes that have been made to the proposed policy and hope the board will enact them. I think this also needs to be named as like part of our district's work on equity. Pew Research shows that Black Americans are more addicted to their phones than other racial groups, the most, also Hispanic groups. And I think that if we can frame this both as something where we have to do right by all of our students, and we also need to, as Sheila mentioned, like partner with our families. So I fully support the policy as it's been proposed. I encourage us to continue to work with our multilingual families to understand their concerns and their thoughts on this. But yeah, I fully feel, as somebody who every single day has to take away phones in my classroom and end up holding thousands of dollars worth of technology in a shoebox in order to teach and lose so much time every day haggling with kids. I actually don't think it's even a developmentally appropriate ask to say, hey, can you put the world's most addicted machine that has ever been created in your pocket while I'm trying to teach you? They can't. They just can't. It's really, really hard. So I really feel excited that this can move out of the purview of individual teachers and admins and just something more unified. And I am really excited that our district is taking sort of more drastic action on this. Thank you so much. I appreciate being able to speak.
Oh, thank you, Mallory. Mallory was the last hand I see. Is there someone else? Oh, hello. Erica, would you care to say something?
Yes. Hi, my name is Erica Lee Winship. I live in Portland and I'm the parent of two Portland High recent graduates, and I teach at Portland High. And so I just wanted to add a couple of thoughts. I think one, I do agree with people that phones are completely a distraction in school, having taught high school for 28 years in the city. I mean, I definitely understand that they are not something that we want to have in our kids' hands all day long. And so while I'm not completely opposed to a ban, I do have a few concerns. Like Sheila, I'm a little concerned that we don't have a clear plan for collection. And I know that you want schools to be able to develop plans that make sense for themselves. I do just worry, especially at the high school level, right? May is upon us, and then it's graduation season and end of the year and award ceremonies. And there's not a lot of time, I think, for schools to really come together. And as Sheila said, gather school voice around what makes the most sense in a school building. So I would just ask that, one, maybe we just think about implementation. And I hate to put it out a whole year, but at the same time, I feel like this is really rushed. So that's my first thing I'd like you to consider. And the second is, well, I guess there's two other things. The second is that often kids go to phones to access educational materials when Chromebooks are not available. And what happens sometimes, if a kid forgets theirs, that's a different story. But a lot of times, because we share our IT people, there may be an issue with a Chromebook, like it's not charging or something's happened to it, and kids can't get replacement technology right away. So I just think that's something else to consider for, like, how do we make Chromebooks more accessible to more kids during the day. And then the third thing, just from a parent perspective, both of my kids played sports, and there are so many changes throughout a day in a schedule. And I know there's a way around it, but just I don't know what that is yet. And I think we need to think about it. There are constant changes around games and practices and pickups and this and that. And so just to think about how do we create ways for families to communicate more clearly with kids around all of those changes, so that it doesn't, just become constant kids like begging for the phone back. And I have an exception. I need to get this, I need to see my phone because my mom's going to text me because I don't have a ride. And the list just sort of goes on and on. So I think we just need a little more time. And I would just ask you to think about some of those logistics and how long they take to really work out. Thanks so much.
Thank you. Appreciate it. So we have David.
Hi, I'm David Burke. I'm a citizen in Portland, and I work up at Casco Bay. For one of the founders there in 2005. And I strongly support the new language that you guys are discussing tonight. I think it's what we need, what kids need, and what teachers need, what the community needs. I'm grateful that you're, working on it so diligently and with this. And I, again, as others have said, I strongly support getting this work done this spring. I don't want the burden to be put back on teachers. That's failing us across the country, but certainly failing in this district for teachers to be collecting phones and policemen. If we want policemen, we should hire policemen. If we want teachers, let's hire teachers and give them the ability to teach. Let's have teachers teach, students learn, policemen do police work, and keep the phones in somewhere else. If I'm having to collect phones, that's not teaching work. No teacher should ever have to start a class with, everybody put your phones away. The beginning of every class should be, hey, we're going to learn something today that's going to change your life, that's going to make you a better person, that's going to make you smarter, and try to reach for that joy in that. And started with, let's put our phones away. That's, absolutely going the wrong way with that. We could see what other districts are doing. We could see if kids are showing up. We're not the first to this table by any means. We're behind the ball on this. If we see what's happened in other schools, from everything I've heard, kids are showing up and going to school, and kids are adapting. Kids are figuring out how to get to practice and all these other things, which are real. These are very real concerns, but people are adjusting and having found ways, and schools are adapting all across the country. In fact, entire states are adapting. As far as it being rushed, I actually found an email this week to my former boss, Derek Pierce, that was proposing a formal proposal for a ban at our school for cell phones from 2006. So this has been going on for a while. This work is perhaps a bit overdue. And I strongly encourage the board to get after it this spring and bring it to a vote and let the schools get to work on how to really do it the right way, so all of these concerns can be dealt with correctly and thoroughly. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Sarah?
Hello.
Hello.
Hi, I'm Sarah Obari. I am a resident of Portland, parent of two Portland, one graduate, one student, and I'm the current assistant principal at Portland High School. I think you're going to hear a common theme maybe emerge from us at Portland High, that logistics are important, and we're planners and thinkers and like to have the details, and you've already heard some of my colleagues speak up about that. So I'm also in favor of either better enforcement of current policies or just more thinking on how we can get technology out of the hands of students and allow them to more focus on what they're here for. So I think philosophically, all of us believe that this is a good thing, but the logistics to me are just so important, and I don't think we have that figured out. Writing a policy without that, I don't think really does anything. I looked up the pouches just while we were on here because I'm not sure how a pouch helps us with the issue of how to remove teachers and administrators from having to police this. And I just see this language. Upon entering the phone-free space, your phone will be placed inside a yonder pouch. Once inside that phone-free area, the pouch is locked. So I think I can envision what this looks like, but I don't understand how this solves any of the issues of how adults would still need to manage something like this. I definitely think we need more time to think about the logistics and to do the planning. I think these committees that were started, in which there's only been 2 meetings so far, that bring together students and families and administrators and teachers to make a plan, is really important to see that through and not to rush this. And I just want to share at the high school level, when you think about this even concept of a yonder pouch, that students have many different schedules. They move in and out of our building constantly. They have late arrival, they have early release, they leave for lunch. We have an open campus. Kids at the high school level leave for their own appointments once their families dismiss them. There's just so many parts of a high school's day where we see kids coming in and out of our building that I can just envision that this would be a constant need to monitor kids putting something in a pouch. Maybe taking it out of the pouch is easy because it's a machine, but I just can't really quite see how to bring this to fruition that doesn't involve like manpower time. So I just really encourage you to use the process, allow us to meet more, allow us to bring our heads together to solve this issue and to not rush it. Thank you.
Appreciate it. Public comment still open. Does anyone else want to say anything? Wait a minute here. I see no other hands, so I am going to close public comment and we can start our agenda for the day. We have the 2 items that are on agenda today, which is cell phone policy proposals and the High School of the Future update. We also have some people joining us because of various meetings that went late. which includes Dr. Warren and Chair Lentz and I think Member Ali. So I appreciate you all being here. And is there anything? I did want to make one comment before I hand it over to Dr. Warren. And that is, I got notification that tomorrow at 10 a.m. at in the legislature, there is a bill which is having public comment on cell phones at the state level. So it's here one way or the other, I think, as we're going along on this whole discussion. So take it away, Dr. Warren.
Thank you, Dr. Opperman. If it's okay with you, I'd like to ask Pamela Otonu-Thompson to just go ahead and do her update on High School for the Future, which is relatively brief, because I think we may need more time to talk through the cell phone issue.
I agree.
Okay. And maybe if you want to go ahead and start just introducing the topic, that would be great.
I can do that. Right. So I'm here to just give a brief update on where we are with the High School for the Future work, which encompasses, what's currently happening at the high school level, as well as some future work that will be upcoming. So the agenda really for this is to review the Portland Public Schools portrait of a graduate and school community, as there are new members to the board who may not be fully aware of how that came to be and where we are with that. And then also discuss where we are with the state application for the integrated consolidated 9 through 16 educational facility. And then lastly, just to talk about some of the work that we're currently doing to enhance data-driven collaboration and just student success overall. I'm going to pause. Can you guys hear? Can you still hear me?
Yes. And
yes.
Go ahead. I've got the deck up now. I went past the, I don't know if you can see it.
Yeah, yes, I can see it. Thank you.
Okay, great.
So maybe having my video off will be the way to go. Just the Wi-Fi isn't great. Okay, so just to quick update on the portrait. So like 3 years ago, right, we decided to go ahead and create a vision for a high school, what high schools should look and feel like and all of that. And so really in order to do that, we thought rather than sitting around and creating that on our own, to go out to our stakeholders, our community, and ask what's the job of high schools in preparing students? What are the skills and attributes that are needed to ensure student success once they graduate? So we, via focus groups, surveys, individual interviews, we gathered feedback from over 1,000 folks, and those included students, alums, employers, community partners, higher ed institutions as well, to really think about what are those skills and attributes that are essential that we need right now as our students progress through high school and graduate. And so in doing that, I mentioned that we got feedback from over 1,000 folks, but in addition to that, 3 years prior, we were also doing other work and in which we were getting feedback from various stakeholders, right? Like the equity policy is one where we got feedback from lots of folks on what needs to be in place. When we looked at curriculum and as well, we got feedback from folks. So we took all the themes that were emerging from the work from prior years, in addition to what came up during the course of interviewing and gathering feedback from stakeholders to really come up with the themes that were emerging. And so from that, over the iteration of the course of a year, we created the Portrait of a Graduate, which outlines the skills and attributes that are needed for success that we're going to prepare our kids for at the high school level. And then at the same time, as we're talking to folks and looking at what came out from the data, at the same time, we saw the report, the portrait of a school community was emerging. So what are the conditions that need to be in place? So this is the Portrait of a Graduate. We have 6 pillars here. Self-advocacy is one, community builder is the other, lifelong learner, being a skilled communicator, problem solver, prepared for success. Just to be mindful of time, right? So underneath each of these are detailed sort of outlines of what's included under each pillar. And you can find it on our website under High School for the Future. If you look there, you'll find all the different elements that are underneath each of the pillars. On the next slide, so what I mentioned is, so then those are what we're equipping students with, but then what's key is what needs to be in place in our school community in order to help prepare students with those skills and attributes. And so emerging from that were 8 pillars, so 8 conditions for success that need to be in place in our community. And those, the first 4 are rich and numerous opportunities, focus on building community, challenging and meaningful curriculum, instruction that supports each student. The next 4 on the next slide, support for each student's future plan, adequate staffing, structures, and resources, thriving staff, and quality facilities. And I will say that in creating this, we really did honestly get feedback from everyone and made sure not to delete anything that would not feel comfortable for us. And so as you see, it's really what educators showed up as they shared. So, adequate staffing, structures, and resources is one of those, thriving staff. Although we did hear that from other stakeholders, not just educators, but what shows up in our Portrait of a School community is really authentic to what we're hearing from all stakeholders in terms of what needs to be in place. And so as such, as you can imagine, there's a lot here. And so this is really the work of the community at large. So it's not just about what teachers are doing in the classroom or administrators are doing or even district leaders, but it extends beyond that to really fostering strong business partnerships and making sure that the work of supporting our students, it's really the work of the entire Portland Public Schools community, including higher ed, adult ed, right? And our employers and community partners. So that's the work here. And so the next steps are really to really implement these and think about how do we go about creating, ensuring that these conditions are in place, and as well as making sure that our students are equipped to succeed. All right, so in terms of the application itself, so one of the things, if you would have seen in our Portrait of a School community, the conditions for success was to have quality facilities is one of the things that was named by various stakeholders. So that lives there. But in addition to that, right, there are structures, systems, programming, innovative work that needs to happen. That's part of those conditions for fostering those skills and attributes. And so we are applying, as you all know, for the 9 through 16 Educational Facility Fund through the state. And that application brings in pretty much everything that our community outlined in our Portrait of a Graduate and Portrait of a School community. So it lines up beautifully with what our community named as being essential things for us to have in place. And so where we are with that work right now is we're on track to apply on time. And so we have our mission and vision outlined. We also have the organizational structure of the campus itself that will be in place. And we've worked with our school leaders and the design team and others in order to sort of create that initial draft. And we're working on the pathways and program design, and also how we're going to ensure our students are meeting the Maine learning results, and that rigor is in place and students are achieving. There's also work happening with fostering that partnership. As I mentioned, in order to create that condition for success, we really need to think outside of just those folks that are in our school buildings, but to the larger community. So working with key stakeholders, our higher ed institutions, SMCC, USM, Maine Health, Tyler Technologies. So just really looking at what, and actually also Portland Boys and Girls Club, right? So what are the organizations out there that we can partner up with in order to support our students and our educators? And then we, it's always key, and it's been great that every time the High School for the Future has been brought up at a school board meeting, that the question has come up of, what about student voice? What are the students saying? So on March 25th, we held a district high school level student summit, during which time we brought over 100 students together. And I have to say, we had educators, a team of educators at each of the high schools that were involved in making this happen, and they were instrumental in doing this work. So they were key in holding meetings together to plan for it. They also got together a group of students who were going to be the facilitators for the student summit, because it was really key that it was student led, so students could openly speak up and know that this is their thing. So we had educators who supported students and training them as facilitators, getting to that March 25th date, and then the day was a success, and really was because of the heavy lifting from the students and the educators in the room. And so students really shared. So the students were broken up into focus groups. There were 3 rooms for each of the schools, and there were some questions that had been created that the student facilitators were aware of in advance, and they were asking their peers and having an honest conversation, and the adults in the room were really just taking notes and listening. And then there was a second session during which time the adults and the students interacted and really talked about like what's possible and what should come next and all of that. So it was great, and it from hearing from students and the facilitators and the adults that were present, it was a success. And the next steps are now to look at the data. The secondary network team is meeting. We looked at some of the initial data yesterday. We're meeting tomorrow to thoroughly look at the data, examine it, and then we're going to meet with school teams as well to help them in thinking about what the next steps are and really doing that work. So we're going to share with the students in September, some in the fall, like what action steps are happening. We'll also update them on the review of the data. I did hear, I'll transparently share that I heard at a school board meeting, one of the students say, like, it'd be great to have students also review that data. So that's one of the things we'll talk about tomorrow, that possibility. And really take action steps. So next year, there will be something that the schools decide to change based on the feedback they heard from students, and we'll share that with students so that they know the work that's happening, keep them up to date, so they know that time was valuable and we are taking action, and it's informing our work at the district as well as at the schools. So ongoing work. So there's the application, but we're also doing the work now. We're not waiting to hear back about whether we get the funds or 7 or 8 years if we have a new building. A lot of the key is really making sure that the portrait of a graduate and portrait of a school community are in place. That's at the heart of the work. And so we're looking at how do we foster continuous growth, right? And some of the domains that really come up, we have a partnership with the RISE network that has supported our grade 9 teams, and really they're much in alignment with what Portland Public Schools, what we as a district also believe are key domains for continuous growth that we've named ourselves. And so these are the things here that you see. So having prioritized goals, right? Actionable data. So we've been working strongly on that. Aligned systems and resources, distributed leadership. So making sure the right people are at the table and that we're really working as a team. Improvement team and mindsets, regular meetings, with various stakeholders at the table, and student and community engagement. So making sure student voice is present, as well as our community voice and families, and that they're part of this work. So we're doing that. Okay, so in line with that, so for the strengthening the data-driven collaboration, so we're working on enhancing that teacher collaboration time, right? So making sure that when teachers meet or departments meet, that conversation is really focused on student success and the assets, right? What students bring, their strengths, and how do we foster growth and support them as they make their way through high school in the various pathways. supporting ninth grade success. So we have, there's an on-track definition. So we want to make sure that students are on track to graduate as soon as they enter ninth grade, right? We're meeting regularly, looking at data, making sure they're achieving, they have goals in place, and we're tracking, ninth grade teams are actually looking at data and catching students who are not on track to support them. And then we're advancing the post-secondary readiness part. So for the past 2 years, I'll back up. So some of our schools have been, we've been doing work to expand and really strengthen the ninth grade work for a number of years. And some schools, based on their history and where they came from, some of our high schools were further along in that. And then as of 2 years ago, we brought all of our, we recognized that this pivotal year of ninth grade was really key. So all of our schools have been doing that work and doing a great job in making growth. And so now we're also looking at post-secondary readiness because we recognize while our counseling departments and our schools have been doing work to support students as they go through high school, the data hasn't been there to really show that we're supporting all of our students. And we're hearing from families and students, right, that there's some students that are being missed and aren't getting the support they need. So really now bringing that work to the forefront as well to make sure we're supporting our schools and advancing that post-secondary readiness and the pathways. Next slide. So, okay. So in terms of the data-driven meeting piece, the key here is to ensure that there's more frequent meetings. I want to say that as I share this, I'm not saying that our schools aren't having regular team meetings and that departments aren't meeting. All of that's happening. We just want to make sure that there's the supports in place as educators meet, that they are doing the work of analyzing assessments, tracking progress, reviewing data, and then identifying the instructional strategies that need to be in place. So we want to make sure that our classroom teachers and our educators are doing that work. We found that just by looking at data and having those meetings and really having it focused, organically, educators start collaborating with each other and start coming up with creative ideas of how to better support students. That's not forced, but just organically emerges. So we want to make sure that space is held for them. So we did do an audit earlier in the year to just get a sense of how frequent teachers are meeting and how data is being used, and that there's a goal alignment. And so that varies right now across the high schools and across departments, how that's happening. And so part of the work of the High School for the Future really, right, is to make sure we have structures and systems that are streamlined across the board. There's consistency to make sure all of our students are successful. So that's part of the work is as we look into next year is really making sure we have regular collaborative data meetings across the schools and supporting principals, and how to ensure that happens. What are some of the barriers, scheduling and so forth, but just emphasizing that that's really key. And so data is one of the big pieces to that, right? Easy access to relevant data. And all of the folks that have been, working with us will say data is key, and they're learning that. And so with Power Schools coming on board for the data on track piece of things, that's going to be really helpful because it's gonna make things easier for them. Instead of using spreadsheets to collect the data, we'll have a platform for that. Okay, so I'll just be brief with the grade 9 piece here. So the grade 9 team, as I said, they're having school-based data meetings at each of the 3 high schools, and they have been using spreadsheets because we don't currently have the tool but we're working on it as a district, and they'll be able to pilot that in the fall. So they're looking at student grades, attendance, behavior, and all of that, and discussing how to support students, and also involving parents in that outreach. And it's also extending to not just the team of teachers that meet or that teach the students, but also teachers and educators in the larger school, and how do they work to support the ninth grade team as well. Target student support. So Summer Bridge is one of those. You guys all know about the Summer Bridge Academy. We've held it the past 2 years. It's been really successful. So just continuing that work and really growing it, and ensuring that more students are taking part in that. So we've increased the number of students that will. So when we initially started, it was 20% of the students coming into ninth grade year is what we're expecting schools to bring on board for Summer Bridge, and that was really to ensure, like they felt supported, and they were just trying this to see how it would work, and also looking at the data to see whether or not it was successful. And so they have found that it's really supported the students that have taken part in Summer Bridge. And now that they've had 2 years of doing this, they're able to expand it to include more students and really do that outreach. And the partnership with the middle schools is key. So one of the things we're doing earlier now is to meet with the 8th grade educators to tell them more about Summer Bridge and really help them name which students should be targeted and do that outreach alongside the high school educators. And then so this is now at the sort of the district or the cohort level for the educators, is that part of what we have in place for them is the professional learning that they take part in. So we have quarterly virtual learning sessions with a RISE network that they all take part in. We also have a grade 9 cohort. So we hold those meetings bi-monthly. And we have the 9th grade educators from all 3 high schools. Their lead folks come together and really share strategies. What's working? What are the challenges? What do they need support with? And there's a lot of learning that's come out of that alone. And they're so collaborative. It really feels like a team across all 3 schools, one team. We also have the 8th and 9th grade educator collaboration space that we hold. So this year, due to scheduling, we just had 1. We did have 2 last year, and the plan was to have 2, but that's a space where we bring all 8th grade educators, 9th grade educators into one space by content area. We also have included counselors as well as assistant principals in that space. So the assistant principals will meet at the high school level, will meet with the 8th grade assistant principals. The counselors at the 8th grade counselors will meet with the 9th grade counselors. And so that space really came about from the 9th grade district work group, where educators said, it could really be nice if we had space and time to meet together. And so it's not just one teacher trying to find time, but it becomes a system where in a structured space where everyone gets to have that opportunity. And so the agenda is built off of what the 9th grade educators would like to hear from their counterparts at the middle school, and vice versa, what the 8th grade educators are asking they would like to know more about for that vertical alignment to smooth the transition. And it's been a success, and that's something that everyone likes and would like to continue. School visits, that's been happening. So we just had one recently in beginning of April as well to other schools outside of the district. Because one of the things that's been key in this work of reimagining or rethinking how we can improve, the key to it really is going outside of our doors and looking at other districts and what they've done. It really helps us to, not only is it just great to collaborate with others, but it helps just to rethink and think about things we can do new and differently. So it's helped at the district level as well as the school level to take part in those. And then there's the annual convening as well that our educators take part in. Right. So for the post-secondary work, just briefly, so for this year's, what we've done is we did an audit, and really that audit was really just a meeting with the school counseling department, each of the 3 high schools, and just learning about what's in place and what they're doing. And they are doing some incredible work, and there's curriculum in place. So over the course of the years that have come, there's there's been a lot of growth and movement in the department across all 3 schools. So it was good to see that, in order to see sort of where support may be needed and have them name that as well. And so there's also been virtual sessions that they took part in this year with the post-secondary department from the RISE network, where they were part of a virtual learning session with other counseling department folks from other districts outside of Maine. So they were learning together in that fashion, similar to what the grade 9 teams have been doing. And then on March 31st, there was a special visit just for Portland Public Schools post-secondary team, I guess I should say, where we had administrators, counselors, we had some Make It Happen folks and ELO folks that actually attended from one of the schools. And so it was really thinking about who are the folks that support our students in their post-secondary voyage through high school. And so we went to Maloney High School because they've been doing that for years. And so we were there to observe and learn what they've been doing. One of the things we were able to witness and observe was a team meeting where, a team of folks meet, including counselors, administrators. So thinking about distributed leadership and who should be at the table. They had community partners represented also at that table to really, and then they look at student data, right? And they look at how students are doing, which students have decided where they're going after high school, which students still don't have a plan, who is the best person to meet with a student, and all of those things are in place, but really looking at the numbers to make sure students are not missed. And then also having like a focus area, which student populations do we want to target, because we're not, the data shows we're not doing a great job in supporting them. So we were able to witness that live. And one of the things that came out of that, folks leaving that came up with at least one action step that they're going to do next year to support in the post-secondary area to support students. And then the big one that came up was the importance of data. That was named, that everyone appreciated. And so here's just, I think this is like one of the couple last slides. So here's the goals for next year for our post-secondary work, is just to ensure 100% of students complete a post-secondary plan, so that every single one of our students will have a plan for what they're, in terms of, when I say post-secondary plan, is whether they're planning on going to a 4-year higher ed institution, a 2-year higher ed institution, or if they're going to a work study or program, or if they're going right into employment, or if they're going to enlist, right? And so making sure all students have a plan and that they're set up to make sure that happens before they graduate. And then 90% of students complete key milestones. That'll be sort of the goal there, with applications, AVAB, job interviews. So really intentionally making sure we're targeting students and supporting them. Then ensure 80% of college-bound students complete the FAFSA by May 1st. And again, right, the part of this is that we're doing this, it's conditions for success for the school community. So this is not just on the school counselors, but really thinking about who is involved in this, right? Outside of the counseling department, who in the school can support this, and who in the community can also come in and support this work. And then data-driven support, making sure that we have data to actually help make this efficient and support our educators as they do this work. And then there'll be a post-secondary work group similar to what we've had with the grade 9 work group. So we'll have a post-secondary work group, and that space will be to have our counselors collaborating together, sharing strengths, successes, strategies, and also, sharing with us as a district, what are ways we can better support and what things we should have in place to support them as they do this work. And that's it.
That's impressive. Certainly very impressive. And thank you for that. And I see already that Vice Chair Bondo would like to speak to the issue. Has questions? Go ahead.
Thank you, Chair. And I know it has been so quick and fast. Thank you, Pamela, for the presentation. I think we need a workshop for that. Because it's a lot of to absorb. So, but just thank you for the presentation. I have some quick questions. So, first of all, I'm so pleased to know that we're still doing a lot while the application is still ongoing. That's exactly what I've been all the time asking for, because we still have the students are there and need to be equipped. So I think when I see what we've been doing, but so my question is that, Pamela, when you're talking about the school on rise domains application, implementation, I'm sorry, what kind of challenge did we see by doing it on the different aspects of the school system? And then the second question is that right now, if I understood, we are just on the stage of the data assessment and professional development for teachers. That's second. And third, on the audit, the 2024, the post-secondary, because if you can just give us little details on some of the area of growth they have mentioned in those audits, and what kind of strategy we have proposed to overcome that. It's kind of a lot, or did you get all my questions?
I think the second one, I might have, can you repeat the second question?
The second is on the stage right now. Are we just on where we are right now with those domains? Are we just doing the data assessment and the professional development, or we are just on the ground and we got some outcomes from there?
So the first one is around challenges, right, for those conditions.
All right. Yes, for the school on rise domain.
Yes, yeah. And so the challenges there really are that the data piece is one that has been a challenge in terms of, as you guys know, we've been working on strengthening our data systems as a district. So that has been an area of challenge where our educators, I will say, are very much as they've been working and really thinking about how to better support students, are very eager to do this. And so that's one area that has been a challenge that they've been asking for support around, and they've been doing their best with spreadsheets or supporting each other with how to create that. And we have a WinMe system that we use, and so we've adapted some of that temporarily for the grade 9 team at least, so that it helps them to quickly see attendance data and grades and all of that as we work on a more district data platform. The other challenge has been time. And when I say time, I like schedule issues, and there's only so much time in a school day, right? And there's classes to be taught. There's support programs to hold in place as well. And so our leaders find that to be challenging, and to craft time to make sure that our teachers have time to meet during the school day, and they're not trying to find time after school hours. And I think, and our educators share, like, that's, they're enthusiastic for the work, and they're asking, the scheduling and time for collaboration has been the challenge there. And so that's something that we need to support and think through. And then in terms of your second question, what are we doing right now? And are we just sort of assessing the data? Or are we doing things actively on the ground to move that work forward? We are. So so I'll say with the grade 9 teams, that's happening where, as I said, like, they meet and they have grade 9 teachers in the room. They have counseling representation. They have an administrator also present. They have their climate and culture coordinator present. And so and they have a spreadsheet with data. So they're doing this work, absent, even with the challenge of data, they're doing this work, and they're in getting support to, as needed to do that as well. We're also looking at next year having our 9th grade teams visit each other, right, to see what's going really well in one school, and so they can learn from that as well. So that's happening. So with that too, the attendance, I will say, like this same team structure of, you know, the conditions and distributed leadership with attendance is happening at, you know, like I'll name, for instance, and like Portland High School has, we went and saw a data team meeting a couple of years ago, and one of the great things is with the 9th grade team and with the administrators, they've been having strong data meetings around attendance where there's good representation and there's actionable steps. So the key piece of this is you don't just, there's data present, you're looking at the data, but you're also leaving with action steps for what's happening next, and each person leaves with something that they're going to do to support students. The other thing that's, so with the post-secondary, with the work that's happening, for this year, it's been more like to figure out what's happening at the schools and hear from them what should happen, and then think about next steps to support the work that they're doing. And so one of the things that they mentioned, you said, like, what are some things that came up from that audit? The data piece was, I would say the data piece, I think they would, you know, I don't think, I'll share transparently, right? So we weren't able to really get an exact number of how many students are being supported or not. There's like more of an estimate or a guess. So that piece, the data piece, is essential. And when they went to Maloney High School, right, and saw that data meeting in action too, no one was like, no, we don't need data. So everyone is very supportive and knows that that's a need. So that was one thing, the data piece. And then another thing that came up was support for students as they support in meeting the milestones for graduation in terms of making sure they're prepared for their pathways. And then also that came up is after they graduate, this one was, so after students graduate, it came up that we don't really know if they follow through on the plans they set. And some of them don't have the support in place to do that. They don't have parents or families that can do that. And so it was a concern from counselors, like, can we set up something where like we can track these kids or be during that summer phase after they've graduated, support them to make sure they get to that next step of theirs. If they're going to a four-year institution, make sure they do all the steps and they get to USM, right? Or they get to SMCC, or they do that job interview. And so there's one of the things that they talked about at Maloney High School was those programs that they do have in place. They have, you know, like there's a summer bridge for post-secondary that happens between 11th grade and 12th grade. That one of our high schools, two of our high schools actually are thinking about, can they institute it this summer? Because that would really help get the kids ahead in being prepared. And then there's also programs that are post high school, right? That Maloney they spoke about at this visit too, where kids get the support they need after they graduate. And that one, and again, I keep referring back to our Port Traverse school community, but that's one where we really can, and there's key community partnerships that we can utilize to support our schools in helping those students after they graduate. So that's part of the work. Those are things that came up that we're going to try and work through.
All right.
I think Vice Chair Bondo is correct. We do need a workshop on this so we can give it its due, because there are so many aspects to this that could have, you know, in depth, and we want to make sure also that the community at large, and particularly from the middle school teachers, all understand where the kid and elementary school teachers where people are headed. So I thank you for that presentation, and we will see you we'll make sure that's happening soon, because I think it's incredibly important that the whole board hears all of this. So thank you very much, Pamela.
Thank you for giving me the space. Happy to join anytime.
Oh, awesome. Thank you so much.
Yes.
Dr. Warren.
Great. Thank you, Chair. Thank you, Pamela, for the presentation. I am going to try to be relatively efficient here. Oops, sorry, still got this. All right. Can you see right now? I'm not sure which page you're seeing. Are you able to see the policy?
We're seeing the red
with red lines.
And,
okay.
And it is very small.
Okay. Is that better?
Depends on who you are.
I'm not going to dwell on this page for very long, actually.
Okay.
I'm calling this up because I want folks to see just how kind of messy it is with the red lines. This is not the easiest way to read this, so I'm actually in a second we'll shift over to the clean document because I think it will be easier for folks to follow as I talk through it. But I want to, by way of framing, just note that this is a policy, JFCK, that, as we've heard in public comment and in other meetings and forums, there's a lot of interest in and energy around. I think that in our last conversation here in the committee expressed interest in moving in the direction of a no cell phone policy. So our current policy is essentially an off and away type of policy. And a little bit more flexibility at the high school level where students are allowed to take their phones out during lunch and breaks, but often away at the elementary and middle school levels, and often away during classes at the high school level. But what the committee had requested was that we look at moving in the direction of language that would take us more towards what I would call a no cell phone policy or an all-out ban during the school day. And so that's the policy language that I will show you in a second. So let me you can see here, there's a lot of crossing out of old policy and then moving things around and adding new language. When we heard public comment, some of the things that people were talking about were actually what I would regard not so much as policy, but rules. So the distinction being that the board sets policy, which is the overarching framework that guides things in the district, in this case, the use of cell phones and electronic devices. And then staff follows the guidance that then comes from the board. Once a policy is passed by the full board, usually staff would then create rules that accompany and support the new policy. In this case, because the rules end up being so important, I think, in terms of how people think about the policy and its implementation, the board requested, and the committee requested, that when we come back with this draft language, we also share our thinking on what the rules might look like, at least at the elementary and middle school levels, and then a plan for how we're going to engage people around what the high school rules should be. And the reason behind that sort of staged approach was that we've done a little bit more in the way of discussion and community engagement, especially at the middle school level, but really haven't so much had that conversation as much at the high school level so far. And high schools are complicated and a little bit different. So we need to make sure we're thinking through the nuances there. So what I will share with you now is the updated proposed language based on the request from the board during the last conversation. And then I will share with you briefly some draft rules. And I'll show you some of the things that we're working on in terms of public engagement and engagement of staff and students. So the key, I think, change here in the proposed new language, again, is really moving away from off and away and towards no phones or devices during the school day. We've added in a few other items like tablets and gaming devices, just calling out and recognizing that there are many more things than just cell phones that students may bring to school. Some people have mentioned switch devices, which is a way that students play games. So we know that we could name many different things, and we would never probably capture all of the things that are possible or that may come down the road, new technology that may get developed. So the goal is not to be all encompassing, but just to make sure that we're clear that we're talking about all types of electronic devices. So if you, sorry, I'm in just want to make sure I'm in the right place.
I think so.
Okay. So number one, you'll see here there's the reference to the superintendent or designee developing a process for collecting cell phones and other communications. This is also addressed in a little bit more detail in the draft rules that you'll see. And also noting that if a student is violating the policy, then an administrator could take away the phone. The emphasis here on administrators was intentional. I think one of the other things that we heard from the committee during its last conversation was a strong desire to take some pressure off of teachers for having to manage cell phones and take them away from students, or sort of have that ongoing conversation with students and the responsibility for it. So there's a little bit of a slant here in the direction of administrators taking charge. I think we also heard at public comment earlier that some people have concerns about the weight on the administrators. So we need to think those things through when we're looking at the rules as well, how we would do this in practice. This notes that students would be encouraged to leave electronic devices at home when possible. There is, the possibility that they don't actually need to bring them to school. There may be students and families that feel like they do need them en route to school, on the way home, or for other reasons. So this doesn't make it a mandate that devices can't come into the school, but just a strong suggestion. Number 3, the primary point here being that this is not something where we're talking about having a lot of exceptions or administrators having to manage a huge flood of exceptions. If adopted in this way, with this language, it would really try to minimize and put some significant boundaries around exceptions. The process itself, again, would be something that would be defined in the rules, and probably some school-specific procedures around that, but at the policy level, trying to make clear that this is something that can be very disruptive to the educational process, and that it needs to be really only limited to cases, for example, where a student might be wearing an insulin pump and it's run by their phone. That seems like a very legitimate type of case where a school leader would want to make an exception. It's proposed here, as it has been in the previous policy, that there'd be some flexibility around field trips and extracurricular activities, but I think that's something that the committee should discuss. And then if there is permission to use a device in certain situations, we have retained a lot of the legal language around appropriate use and inappropriate use of devices. So just making sure that it stays within safe and legal bounds. And then again, this is standard language that was here before around devices being subject to search and potentially turned over for evidentiary purposes if there were a police or legal investigation. So, Chair, I want to make sure I'm being respectful of your process. Would you like me to go on and give a quick overview of the draft rules, or being mindful of time, would you prefer that I stop here and give the committee a chance to talk?
I think a chance to talk would be good. I've also checked that we may go past it, according to Greg, who's in charge of our technology, as needed. I'll go back past a little bit. So if we have any questions about what has been proposed here, please let us know among the committee members. I'm trying to see if I have any arrows. I see no arrows.
Yes, actually.
There you go. All right.
Hi, how are you guys? So thank you, Dr. Sarah, to Dr. Warren, apologies, to presenting this. I was looking through my email and I can't find that specific document. I see 2 other ones that are very similar, but this specific one, did you share this with us? Any chance?
It's on board docs.
It's board docs, yep.
Okay, yeah, that's where I messed up. Okay, thank you.
Yeah, and for the benefit of the public, if people are watching, if you go into board docs, this document is available both with and without red lines, as is the draft of the rules. And then there's a separate document that just gives an overview of upcoming engagement plans. But yeah, all of those are available as well for the public in board docs.
So if at this point there's no questions on this, go ahead, Dr. Warren.
Okay. Okay. You seeing draft rules now?
Yes. All right, and these are the ones that were shared at the work session today?
Yes. So what Dr. Opperman is referring to is a work group that has been convened in order to talk specifically about the use of electronic devices at the high school level. That work group has now met twice. The meeting today both updated them a little bit on where we're at in this process with the board, but also had them look at different policies and rules from other places. And then with that as context, they looked at this draft set of rules and began to sort of chew on these a little bit and give us some feedback and their thinking on these rules. So again, just as a reminder, the committee would be voting on the policy when you get to that, whether you choose to vote on it tonight or wait until your next meeting. It would be the policy you're voting on. And then the rules, of course, any feedback that the committee has on the rules, we would take into account as we're moving this forward and working on them. In general, in terms of policy, the board has the ability to reject rules developed by staff if they're not in alignment with the policy set by the board. But generally speaking, the board doesn't get into a lot of the nitty-gritty of writing up the rules. But I think in this case especially, seeing the rules as they're developing and how they might go hand in hand with the policy is fairly important because the devil is sort of in the details when it comes to the implementation. So I will take full ownership of this, as I said earlier, to the group at the high school level that if, like an author, if this is good, then it's probably because of a lot of the work done by other people that I have learned from and benefited from. And if it's bad, please blame me. But it felt like we needed to just get something down in writing. And I will say, I feel like this needs a lot more consultation and engagement. I don't really love that it was drafted by one person, but it has had some input so far, but I think we need a lot more of that before we get anywhere solid. My experience in trying to draft rules was that even though we had talked about creating rules specific to elementary and middle schools and then a separate set of rules for high schools, in fact, it seemed important to start with general rules that would apply across all schools in common. And after doing that, I couldn't come up with anything that was really different or specific for elementary and middle schools. So we'll walk through this a little, and if other people come up with things, then we can certainly add a separate section for elementary and or middle schools. Again, there's just encouragement here for students to leave devices at home. You heard people earlier talking about a particular kind of technology, a bag that allows people to come and it's like a pouch that essentially locks itself. The way that this set of rules is currently drafted, it's a little bit agnostic. It doesn't specifically promote a particular approach or a particular technology or product for storing devices during the day. it tries to leave a little bit of autonomy and flexibility for school communities to come up with the system that works best for their schools. This may or may not be the right approach. Maybe it's better that the whole district has the same way of doing it, but that's the way that that I've currently constructed it in this set of rules, to leave some of that flexibility. But within the bounds of these rules, making sure that it's simple and efficient, that it doesn't cut into administrative time. I mean, you can imagine that if students are coming in the morning and placing their devices somewhere, whatever the box or bag or technology is, that could take some time. So the system would need to be pretty efficient and not cut into instructional time. There needs to be a way of doing it. And again, as other people have noted, this is not new. We're not inventing something new. This is done in other places. So we could undoubtedly learn from them how they have figured out ways to make it more efficient and less burdensome for educators or administrators. But that would be one of the main goals. And then some folks, as we've had some of these consultation sessions, have noted the importance of knowing what to do in the event that a student comes late and misses the process in the morning, or they leave early and they need the device back. The safety and security element needs to be really thought through. Devices need to be put in a place that's safe, and it needs to be clear which device belongs to whom, so that they don't get lost. And then each school should also have a procedure. And again, this may be something we want to standardize more, but there needs to be a way for students to request an exception. And those exceptions should be very limited. So I think while the procedure may vary, the restrictions around this would be relatively tight across the district, primarily related to health needs, learning needs. If something is identified in an IEP or a 504 plan that a student really needs a particular type of device due to their particular learning needs, then that would be the type of thing that we would allow. There could be other types of exceptional circumstances. I don't know exactly what all of those are. And I did hear it mentioned earlier in public comment that we need to be thinking about our multilingual students. I think that is important, but I'm also not quite sure what that looks like. And I think that's something that's worthy of discussion by the board and the committee. We would like this to be a somewhat formal process so that there's something in writing, and if there needs to be an appeal, that appeal could go to an assistant superintendent. We don't want this to be a lifetime exception, so it would need to be renewed at the start of the year, or it could even be that an exception is made for a set period of time within a year, not the entire year. The policy that we just looked at has some flexibility for after school programming and the ability for coaches or club leaders to make some decisions about whether or not to allow devices during those activities. That probably, again, needs to be defined more clearly at the school level, how they want to do that, so that there's some consistency there. And then noting that, I don't envision this being the kind of a situation where, it's not like students are going to be walking in and someone's looking through their bag looking for a device, right? It's more in the honor system that the student is handing the device over. But if suddenly they're seen using a device that they didn't give up, then there is the ability for an administrator to take the device and put it away in the safe place according to the procedures. And if this becomes an ongoing issue and normal supportive procedures or the progressive discipline process don't work, then that response would need to escalate. And it could be that maybe that student is never allowed to have a device at school during a set period of time. The goal would not be to have this lead towards suspension. That's not the idea. It's possible that maybe if there were repeated issues and it was sort of part of a larger behavioral challenge, that could be within the progressive discipline sort of ladder of responses. But we're hoping that these types of things can mostly be worked out through support and education and collaboration between students and educators and administrators. And then there's a really important component of this around communication and working with students and families and staff to make sure that everyone knows. Especially important, of course, if this gets passed and implemented for the coming school year, we would need to make a very big push, both at the end of this school year to let people know this is coming, but then again in August as we're heading into school so that everybody understands what the rules are, what the policy is, and how it will be implemented. And then we would continue to communicate that both at the district and school levels throughout the year, and staff would need to be trained on the procedures connected to the policy. And ongoing, we need to make sure that we're educating people, both families and staff and students, about the impact of cell phones and other devices on student learning and development, as well as on the educational process and social engagement. And we don't imagine this will be a static policy or set of rules. We will continue to monitor how it's going. This proposes a semi-annual review of the rules, and maybe more often if there's something that's not working that we need to improve. But we would be continuously monitoring implementation and then adapting as needed. At the high school level, again, there's this group that's working now, and we really have to figure out some of the trickier aspects of high school structure, high school operations, and just the differences between high school students and younger students. So right now we have a couple of our campuses that allow students to travel off campus for lunch. And so, a question has been raised about, well, if they're going out of the building, then shouldn't they be able to get, or wouldn't they need their cell phone to go with them outside of school? Or if they're moving from, let's say, Portland High over to Paths and coming back, should they be allowed to take their cell phone with them when they go there, or to an internship or someplace else? So those are the types of high school specific things that we're trying to wrestle with, and that are now a point of discussion in the work group that we referred to earlier. So let me pause there.
Thank you, Dr. Warren. It's a lot. I don't know what, if we really want to move to adopt the policy and then work on the other parts, or listen to the other, or to wait until our next meeting to do a formal passing of the policy. Student Representative Fitzgerald, go ahead and speak.
Hello, thank you. Can you hear me?
Yes, indeed.
Perfect. So I just want to agree with what was said quite a while ago now, I guess, about the fact that this is a pretty rushed process, in my opinion. I think that I first want to say that I strongly believe we should wait until the next meeting to vote on it formally, because there have been such little discussion with students. And we know at Portland sort of how policy or rules play out when students haven't been that involved. We just adopted a new schedule, and it was aimed to increase student attendance during WIN block or block 5, which was like a study hall period. But a lot of students either now take advantage of it or see it as pointless because teachers are either overworked, and it also goes into lunch. So a lot of students just take a long lunch. I think that there definitely needs to be more student conversation around this before we come to a formal vote, just so that way there's all the information that there can be surrounding both sides of the argument. And that's all I have to say for now.
Thank you. Any other comments from members of the committee? I'm not checking there we go. This is Chair Bondo, you are the only hand up. Go ahead.
Yes, thank you. Yeah, and I totally agree with the student rep. Then we should wait to have the rules adding to the policy because we have some ongoing conversation. So I think having everything on in place so we can build the right conversation among us and getting the big picture are exactly because I'm still little concerned about the storage and procedures around each schools because I know when we do the change is all the time difficult from the beginning. But I just want to see, some of the different options and paths than we may have beside of what's just being described on the rules here. So I'm in favor to wait to finish the conversation, which is happening right now.
I agree with. I think we need more conversation. Just to reiterate, though, we vote on the policy. So if we think that the policy is not appropriate, that students should be able to have their phones whenever is decided. But right now, the policy on that will be coming back next time will be a complete ban with cell phones within the building. So with that said,
Chair, Chair, could I just make a quick point and also ask a question?
Sure.
The committee. The point just being that by the time this committee meets again, we will have continued our conversation and our research and our engagement, but we will still not have a complete set of rules developed for the high school because there's just so much more that needs to be worked out, and the turnaround is relatively quick. We may have it by the time there's a full board vote, but I just don't want to be dishonest with the committee and promise a set of rules that I don't think will be ready by then. The other thing is I just wanted to know on the policy language itself. So we've been looking at the rules, but I'm wondering about the policy language itself and how that is landing with the committee at the moment, and whether you all feel there's more work that we need to do specific to the policy itself, because that's also something that we can be working on between meetings if there are any concerns about the policy language.
Thank you. Mr. Ali?
Yeah, I wanted the third representative, student representative Mrs. Fitzgerald on their statement and making and waiting to identify if we have enough information. The reason being is because there's certain things I'm considering still, maybe there are some family issues at home and medical things that they have to stay on point for, or they may even have a child, right? High school may have a child that has to account for. Another thing is that, the storage, the personal electronic devices, and leading that to all the schools and making sure that there is a good system, because if it does get lost, wouldn't it be school administration's responsibility to replace something like that, right? So, because when it's it's not. So that's another question.
It can be in the policy. I think there's a line in there that says that, but go ahead.
Yeah. So including there's tons of different points that I would like to kind of dig into. We do know it's a problem, right? We do know that having cell phones and active things is a problem. But another thing I would just like to ask is if we can think about how hospitals have a no signal system, whatever, and you can go on the phone, you can use your phone on their Wi-Fi, but they don't have any signal, things like that, maybe blocking different websites. I don't know, but these are all
very good thoughts and good ideas to consider. And I think that's what that committee is. I'm on the committee, the work group, and student representative Fitzgerald's on it, 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 and student representative Fitzgerald's Rosie.
Yeah.
Is also on it, and several of the students. So they're putting up a good discussion on it. I'm gonna. Anything else you wanted to say, Mr. Ali?
No. I just wanted to if we just hearing from them would be more great with time. So no rushing.
Okay, thank you. Vice Chair Bondo?
I just want to answer about the policy. The policy language is where really I'm comfortable to move the policy forward because I know about the conversation is really happening. So I just have a quick question. And I think mostly when we do our policy, we have the R happening also at the same time. But for these, I know then can we have maybe before the school, before the beginning of the school, before September, we can have the holding procedure really in place. So we know when we have to implement now in September, the policy. We know exactly where we standing with the rules because I read and I'm so comfortable. That's why I was looking to have an older grade, to have a free phone, but everything should be on the ruling and the storage and everything we have discussed. So I'm comfortable with the policy to move forward. Yes.
Well, that's good to know. I would hope that we would have the R settled by the end of school year, which sounds very quick. But there's something else that's on the board docs, which is a way of gathering that information. So I think that's an important piece to look at in the future. Student rep, I'm going to skip to Chair Lentz because she hasn't had a voice yet. And then I'll get back to you.
I just wanted to name a couple of things, which I know that there have been folks saying that this has been a quick process, and I think for some folks it has felt quick, but there's also been a process and conversations happening since the beginning of last summer. So I just want to make sure that folks know that has been happening, and we've had a lot of parent input, family input, community input, and school input, and specifically at the middle school level. So I know that has been named, but I just want to name it again. That doesn't mean that we don't continue to get input. In fact, that is what I would recommend, is that we just continue to get more voices at the table to really build out our policy as people are suggesting. But I also just want to reiterate, I think I'm not sure who said it in public comment, but just reminding folks that, there are multiple districts in Maine that have already made this switch, and it can be done, and the benefits that they're seeing are really incredibly positive. I do wonder if we might be able to pull together the research around, I know board members have been sending some things kind of like ad hoc to each other for review, but just to pull together a packet of research around the harm that cell phones give to young people and adults, but in this case around students, and the benefits that people see by creating phone-free spaces. And I have not seen any of this research, but if it exists, any research that advocates for keeping phones in school, because I do think that the majority of the research shows right now that removing phones is what is best for students. And if we know that, and we're in agreement with this policy, I would just recommend that we move towards that and then continue to get the community input for the R pieces so that this could be in place by the beginning of the school year next year.
Okay. Thank you, Chair. Student Rep Fitzgerald, thank you for waiting. Would you like to speak?
Yes. So I'm not talking about any language on the policy in particular. I suppose I just wanted to talk about how I understand, myself and all the other students and young people, children, understand how harmful phones are. We went through the COVID pandemic. I was in 6th grade before that, and kids were very social. Phones weren't around in middle school when I was in middle school, but my sister's in middle school now, and she sees, kids being on their phone more and more. And I would agree with something that was said at the conversation tonight, that phones have become like an addiction. But I also think that if we think of them as an addiction, then we have to understand that it's not an issue. And while it does cause issues in school, it's not an issue confined to school. And I think that as we see younger kids get their hands on phones and the internet quicker and start being affected by it, it's a sign to increase education around phones, not only at school, but at home as well. And target people who, not target people, but target ideas and language in the world that perpetuates harmful, like, actions online. All of the things that the policy is trying to omit. I think it's great, but I don't think that it's an effective long-term way to keep children engaged in their work and off of their phones, because kids are very crafty as well. I heard a lot of support for Yonder pouches, which, while I agree with them, I heard a very good point by the Casco Bay, I think principal today, that if that technology was broken, like the Yonder pouches were broken, it would be not only a huge investment to replace them, but to keep the grant going every year. If we were to use grant money, students already use fake phones in the phone hotels at school, which I think is, rather than a policy issue, an enforcement issue. So I wonder what other schools that have seen benefits by cutting out schools completely, I just wonder what their phone policy was before then and how they were implementing it. Because at Portland, it is very different. It's up to the teacher, basically, what happens with your phone. Some classes, it's just like in your pocket. Other classes, it's in your bag and you're scared to take it out. So I believe that not only is the policy rushed, but I just think that the entire idea is rushed. I had not heard of the policy last year. And I hadn't heard of the policy last year. So I do think that even though there had been discussion and conversation going around, there should have been transparently distributed language to the students as to why this was happening last year. And there should have been conversation with students up until now, because I just know that basically every single student I know disagrees with this policy, as well as many teachers, because they feel alone and left alone by administration to enforce the policy on their own. So I have a lot of concerns about the longevity of this policy, as well as who it truly benefits. So that's what I wanted to say.
Thank you very much. Good points. Appreciate it. Mr. Ali?
Yeah, that was incredible points, Student Representative Fitzgerald. Just want to see that. I am on the side of making sure that phones are not being used in classes, right, and used in schools, and whether it's going to be the banning or not. Specifically from Reiki, King Middle School, Portland High School, went through all of them. I never had a phone up until about junior year. And it was very, like, my attention span was a lot better than it is now, right? Even as an adult. And so the regulation piece of, so I'm in agreement with Sarah and Mickey Bondo, but with the regulation of the phones, like, it's very difficult to have youth, I wouldn't say the high schoolers, but youth regulate themselves. I have to regulate my daughter myself. Like, you know, it's the dopamine that she's trying to chase. So without the enforcement of the regulation, it's we're leaving it up to the students, and we're supposed to be the teachers of the students, right? So that's all I wanted to add. So in support of, like, still continuing discussing, but I think it's a major issue.
Thank you. I have just a comment on a couple things, and one is I am in favor of a ban. I think we really need to figure out the right way to do it. But the other piece of it, and I think Student Representative Fitzgerald brought it up, and it was brought up in a couple other individuals, particularly students, and there are some very good thoughts today, that it's a problem outside of school. And it's a problem in businesses. And part of what we are our responsibility as a board is to create an environment where the students achieve some success and outcomes that will make them successful in the future, and to understand even that some places they do not have control over their cell phone is critically important. I know of people who've been fired, young people who've been fired, not even that young, been fired because of using a cell phone at a time when they should have been doing some other stuff. And it's also a form of business etiquette. And so that's kind of where I'm at. Student Fitzgerald, I'd like to have you speak, and then I will entertain a motion to adjourn since it's almost 7:00. Go ahead.
Okay, thank you. I just wanted to add something very quickly. I was thinking about something during the meeting that we had today at Deering. One of the students there, I'm not quite sure, she was from Deering. She's proposed that we use, I'm not quite sure. Is there a way, is it okay if I mention like the strategies, like the five modes and like the rules that were under them? Opperman, do you know what I'm talking about?
The ones on the those. I think that would be a great discussion to have because that's part of how you could implement them.
I just wanted to mention how she said that there could be different
combinations.
Different like layers to this, different layers to people who are kind of repeat offenders, so to speak, and then children who really don't use their phones at all during class, because it does seem like, well, obviously, I believe it would be helpful for students to not use their phones during class. I don't use my phone during class, and I would consider myself okay, decent. I just think that maybe if we had this implemented at the middle school level first, then we could see as they go into high school, they use their phone less, maybe. I'm just not quite sure. I don't know how well this is going to go over with high school logistics, especially because of paths, the fluidity in and out of the school, kids arriving late. Also, when it comes to path students, there's a morning and an afternoon session, meaning that if their phones were in their advisories, then they would have to bother their advisor during that period of time, which is before class ends. So they would either be disrupting class and postponing other students from getting their phones back, or they would have to go to the main office and potentially disrupt any activity there.
That's why I wanted you to be on that committee. Yeah, okay, because frankly, what you're bringing up are exactly the points that need to be brought up in discussion with the principals, the other students, the parents, and all. And so it is. It's critically important that we have a continued discussion on how you can do it. I think you can do it. It won't be perfect, but
I just wanted to put that out there because I was thinking about it.
I think absolutely, and keep those going. And I think member Ali asked a question about whether paths was included.
It's not a question. It's more of like I just didn't know. I didn't think that they were included. I thought PATS because it's those are different from.
It is different because they're not just Portland students too. So I think that's a legitimate question to find out how this would apply to them because it is one of our schools, but it's open up. So I would entertain a motion. Unless someone else needs to make another comment critically now. Sarah Lenz.
I just wanted to get clarity what the committee is doing with these set of policies. Are you hoping to vote on it in the next meeting, or are you voting on it now? What is the your next steps?
Unless anyone members Ali, Bondo, and Ali, would you like to wait, or would you like to do it now? I would entertain a motion. If someone thinks we should do it, I would entertain a motion.
I'm not ready to vote. I'm not. I want to continue discussing this. As it is, I'm not ready to vote on.
Okay. And I don't have a motion from anyone? So I guess we have to bring it up at the next meeting. Superintendent Scallon, would you like to say something?
Yeah, I just, Chair Opperman, I appreciate this. I just wanted to that question about paths, but also to other questions about the implementation of the policy. Just want to remind and name that the policy committee is the governing body that sets the policy. And so that question of what does this mean for paths is really a question for the board to answer. And then staff can put in place the rules to implement your policy. And so that's why for all of this, it's really important to get the board perspective, because this is really board sets policy and then we work to implement it. And so that question of paths is another area where we would ask for the board to give input before we actually make any changes.
Well, I mean, even as this committee makes a vote, has a vote, it has to go to the board for first and second read. So my thought that we would, if we have our meeting and it's on time, again, we would, that's my only concern, is that we've been juggling meetings quite a bit. But if we have, our next meeting is scheduled for, let me double check here, May 13th at 5 p.m. So at this point, does anyone have a feeling that we would not be able to make a vote at that point? You would not be there.
Well, okay, May 13th. So that means that we have that much time to work on it. But what times are we going to be able to, say if we voted on May 13th, are we going to be discussing that prior to May 13th? How are we going to meet with the cell phone committee, right?
We wouldn't be needing to meet with the cell phone committee because they're not doing the policy. I mean,
right.
We could, I mean, if you agree with the policy part that stands, and if Bondo agrees with the policy and member Ali also agrees, we could vote right now and send it to the board. The board could wait until the 20th, or if they wanted to wait till the 20th to bring it up as a first read, that would be their option. Member Ali, who's here?
Hi, I just want to make something clear. Are we saying let's push this vote because we don't agree with the policy, or we don't agree with the logistics of how this policy will be carried out?
Their push to vote there is no push to vote. It is just saying that when we do vote, it is on just the policy that is before you, separate from all the information that Dr. Warren gave about the discussions that are going on in the committee. Because what happens is we get to choose the policy. We don't want cell phones. And then it is the logistic problem to work the best possible way. We'll never be perfect, to work the best possible way to make it happen. So that's what that is. So other comment?
I thought we did not want phones in schools.
That's correct. Would you like to make a motion?
Yes, I would be comfortable in voting in support of that motion, because that is what the conversation was about. The logistics is something else that we will be discussing. And I don't know how that would, I don't know. I'm not sure what.
So I would. So this would be the motion. If we're entertaining it, it is to accept the revised April 2025 revised policy, or for policy JFCK, student use of cellular phones and other electronic devices. That if you're making a motion, you would be moved to accept that, which is what was written. And I'm not saying, would you like to make that motion?
I mean, if no one wants to vote for it, then I don't know why.
You can make it and we can kill it till next time if you want.
Yeah, I mean, I guess I'll just wait next time, because there's no point in all these nuanced conversations that are happening right now.
Okay. Vice Chair Bondo?
Yeah, I'm kind of a little confused here because I feel like I was clear. Then this is just a policy. I mean, everything else, the ruling, the logistic is still ongoing. Because I know, then you know what? Deering has done that one, 2019-20, 2019-20 school year. The seniors classes, they used to leave their phone in the classroom. So I mean, they didn't have the phone on them while they've been in each classroom. So I think we already have some path here with not all the grade, but I think seniors and Deering, they have done that one a couple of years ago.
Again, that would be something that would.
Okay, so this is that kind of ruling and logistic that I know, then we can continue the conversation to have the right procedures for each schools. But the policy himself, I'm totally agree to move that one forward, and I'm in favor to vote for it.
Right.
Yes.
That's what I thought. Thank you.
Yeah, in that case, I'm also open to voting for the policy itself, but it's not the details. Like I want to keep discussing the details. So that's
exactly
okay. I'm open for that. Yeah.
And I would like to double check with the policy expert at this point. Dr. Warren? This is the policy as we go. It would have whatever modifications have to be made for the regulation at the high school, correct?
So the policy would be, if you voted on it now, you would be voting to either approve the policy as currently written, or you could make amendments to it before voting to approve it. The rules themselves are somewhat separate and parallel, and we would keep working on those. Whether you vote to approve the policy tonight or not, the rules will still be, under provision and in motion.
And what the policy says, I guess the critical sentence on the policy is students may not have cell phones, smartwatches, earbuds, or other personal electronic devices on their person at any time while at school during regular hours. That is what it is. Line 3 says exceptions to this no cell phone policy will be very limited. So at this point, that's what it says. It's not saying with seniors, it's not saying it's just saying no. And that's what the policy says.
And again, just a reminder that the committee vote would be voting to pass this through to the board for first read, and ultimately then we go to a second read and a vote at the board. So
do I have a motion at this point, or is the motion dead?
We do have a motion.
I would tonight.
And a second?
A second.
All right. So any other discussion, questions beyond that?
Yeah, last thing I would like to say, I know that we did a lot last school board meeting and the amendments and everything like that, but I think I'm going to be, if we're moving this to the school board meeting, which I think it should be, I'm really open to a lot of amendments and hearing from the whole school board. So,
well, the school board can make amendments. The whole board could make amendments, but I wouldn't recommend it. But that's just.
Dr. Opperman.
Yes.
Dr. Opperman, can you make sure that you actually take a vote now that it's been seconded?
I will.
Thank
you. Member Ali, did you have another comment? Your hand's up.
No, I'm good. I'm good.
So if there's no further discussion at this point, take a roll call vote on this. So to accept the amended policy JFCK. And so member Ali.
Yes.
Okay. And member Usra Ali.
Yes.
And Vice Chair Bondo?
Yes.
Okay. And I also vote yes. So this is passed and will go to the school full board at a future date. And we can certainly in this committee have other conversations about what the other committees are bringing forward. I also would entertain at this point a motion to adjourn. Got it? okay, one.
Second.
All right, so we all voting? Okay. Thank you, everyone. Thank you, Greg, for staying up late. Thank you for Dr. Warren and Elle for making this go. Have a wonderful evening.